everyone, it's Rakan. You're watching another movie of the week, and the movie this week was Spider-Man Homecoming from 2017. So if you haven't watched it, watch it now. If you're new to movie of the week, what I do is I talk about a movie every year, and you guys come below your thoughts. It's like a movie club, and in 2024 I'm doing like franchises and reboots and things like that. So we've actually are doing 4 different Spider-Man movies. We did 2 already. We did Spider-Man from 2002, Tobey Maguire's first movie. Then we did The Amazing Spider-Man from 2012, Andrew Garfield's first movie, and now we're doing Tom Holland's first movie, Spider-Man Homecoming. So if you haven't watched those movies yet, watch them now and watch those videos. Anyway, let's get into it. So obviously I picked the first movie that was Tobey's, and I picked the first movie that's Andrew's, and this is the first movie of Tom's, but technically this isn't like the first time we see him. He appears, you know, the first time in Marvel Universe in Civil War, which came out a year before this movie. And it's something where it's like, I can't do every single movie. Like, I can't do, you know, comparing here. And I think I really just wanted to analyze Spider-Man. So, you know, doing Civil War here wouldn't make sense. But I think it's even more interesting that I did the first movie of Spider-Man for Tom Holland, and it's so different than the first movie for Tobey and Andrew, and it's because we don't see the origin story of Spider-Man, and we don't see that in Civil War either. So it's kind of interesting, and I'm gonna get so much more into that. I also think about like, why did they do another Spider-Man? I kind of talked about this in my last video about how there's so many Spider-Mans so close to each other. Like, you know, the last Tobey Maguire movie is in 2007, and then 5 years later they have a new Spider-Man, and then Andrew Garfield only had 2 Spider-Man movies, so it was like 2014 and then 2017 with this movie. So it's just like, it's a lot of Spider-Mans, and what's crazy about it too is because, you know, Iron Man is really what started those movies, that like the Marvel movies and the Avengers and stuff, but Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie came out before Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. So it's kind of interesting that they were like, okay, like we have, you know, Captain America, we have, well, they you know, had a different Hulk, but they had, you know, Black Widow or whatever else. And so, you know, they're adding more and more superheroes as those like bigger movies come along. And it's interesting that they weren't like, oh, let's have Andrew Garfield be our Spider-Man. Like, they didn't decide to do that when it's like his movies came out around the same time. So like, wouldn't it make sense? It's kind of interesting that they like didn't go down that path. They had this new Spider-Man who we first see in this movie, Civil War, and then, you know, now he gets his, you know, 3 movies after that. But it's kind of interesting like how they did all that, and like I don't know where it comes from. Like, maybe they wanted someone so young. And something else too is because this is the youngest Spider-Man we've had. He's 15 in this one. Tobey Maguire, he was like, you know, senior year, graduated, like most of the first movie he's like done with high school. Andrew Garfield, it was like his senior year. This one, he's 15. It's the youngest. And so I think they keep having it younger, I think just because, I don't know why. I don't know why. And so it's interesting too that they don't have the origin story of Spider-Man. Like, I can't believe they didn't then like have him be Civil War, and then like the first movie is like how he became Spider-Man, and then it's like, oh, Civil War happened after that. Like, I don't know why they didn't exactly do that. I think, like, I wonder what the reasoning was. Like, they're like, oh, we already know who Spider-Man is, so we don't need an origin story. I feel like all these other superheroes, we get origin stories pretty much. Like, even Black Widow, when she had her first movie, it like showed a little bit of her origin story. So it's just crazy that we didn't get anything of his origin story. And that's why, you know, I was comparing Tobey and Andrew's movies so closely together, because, you know, it's very clear to see like exactly the differences, because they were both origin stories, and because this is not an origin story, it just feels so different, like so off the graph different. And like, I don't know like how to feel exactly about that. What is the reasoning? Like, it just something, it doesn't feel right, but like it also is like, why am I wondering why it doesn't feel right? Like, I don't know, like people who are young and seeing this, like they maybe haven't seen the other movies, so it's like, how do we know how Spider-Man became Spider-Man? I feel like you need origin stories in superhero movies. Like, the first movie has to be an origin story, and then the next few movies are like whatever else, and it just just feels off that there's no origin story, I guess. I also took notes, which is what I'm looking at. I did notes for the last video because there was just so much to talk about, and I felt like, you know, when I was doing this one, I feel like it just makes more sense to have notes as well, just so I don't forget anything. I mean, the movie starts off with like the whole Civil War and like him like filming behind the scenes, things like that, and I think because they didn't have an origin story, and like this is technically like the first Spider-Man movie, we needed some guidance of like who he is. So they decided to have a little bit of the Civil War, but I still like, it's not an origin. It's not an origin story. I feel like this is the funniest Spider-Man. I feel like in the movie at all, like I just feel like Andrew Garfield's was like a step up from Tobey Maguire in regards to funniness, and then this was even like a higher step up. And so it's just like, I feel like it's like they want to make it more enjoyable and like an entertaining thing, so that's why they make it like super funny. But yeah, it definitely was like the funniest Spider-Man, and I wanted to point that out. Now obviously we don't get any of this origin story, so we don't see the uncle, we just see Aunt May. And so it's something where it's like, was like, they don't even talk about the uncle, so it's like yeah, maybe we can assume that like when he became Spider-Man, then like the uncle died, because that's kind of the origin story of Spider-Man, but we don't even know if there was an uncle. So it's just like this Aunt May, and every single different Spider-Man, the aunt is someone younger and younger if you watch the show. So I mean, it's just crazy. Something else I want to point out is this takes place in Queens, and I live in Queens, and so, you know, there was one point where they showed like a subway stop, and they said like it was like 21st Street E&F train, and like E&F trains run in Queens. So I was like, okay, let me just double check. That's not a real stop, but they were smart to pick an E&F train, but like that's not a real stop. And it was just like kind of makes me mad when movies do that, because it's like, you know, unless you're from New York or like really know, like, you know, it kind of goes off your head. But like to me, like I'm so logical that like I get mad at those things. Right away his friend finds out he's Spider-Man, and I think they just kind of like, he needed some kind of ally or like whatever. I mean, I don't know, it just feels like really sudden and soon in the beginning, especially because like we're still new to the Spider-Man. There's no origin story. We like have no idea what's going on. That's another thing with origin story. We kind of see them, it's like very much a hero's journey, and so we kind of see them before like they became a superhero, and to see that comparison, and we don't get that with this. And I know in my other movies I have critiqued the hero's journey, I've done whatever else, but like that's the thing, is the hero's journey does in some way works. And so this kind of still takes like, not just in this movie, but his next two movies as well. It like, he is going through a hero's journey, but you're missing that part at the beginning. That's so crucial. And so it's like, yeah, if you don't want to do a regular origin story, you want to do something different, then don't go through the hero's journey. And especially if you're going to be missing things. So they have a different love interest, and we're going to touch a little bit later into why that is. But then again, like, you know, MJ's there, and it's Zendaya, and Zendaya is amazing. And, you know, we see her more in the next two movies, but I feel like, you know, it's just sad that they didn't use her enough. And it's just like, it just, what? And then also I feel like her character is so different in this movie than the other movies. It just, that's another thing. Daniel Glover was in this movie. I totally forgot. I have heard multiple times so different than the other Spider-Man movies. I feel like because I'm also comparing like the first movies, like if I then, you know, we did videos about Tobey Maguire movies, the rest of his movies, and the other Andrew Garfield movies, maybe I like wouldn't be comparing so much. But this is like the first movie. It needs the origin story. It just, Gosh, just iconic. He was caring more about the trophy than his life. I wrote that note here. He has like a real suit with like real technology, and it's like crazy because in the other Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's, he like makes his own suit, and like he did that here too, but it was like awful suit. And so it's like, it kind of seems like the suit like helps him gives him power. And so it's just kind of crazy that like he just seems like so less like superhero-y than the other Spider-Mans, because they really did all themselves. And he was like relying on Tony Stark, and like, I don't know, it just kind of, that whole element too with like the whole Tony Stark and like wanting to work, and like Tony Stark like being like, I don't, you know, like you're not ready yet. And it just, I don't know, it just felt off to me. Like it just, the whole thing with the Avengers too, it just like, it's something else where it's like, I don't know if it would, I think the whole Marvel writers did, I know I didn't come into here thinking I was going to be critiquing this movie that much, honestly, but now like really analyzing, looking at it, like I think the Marvel writers did a bad job with him not having an origin story before he was in Civil War. Like I just, like not having a movie first. I think they just were like, okay, we have Civil War, we need something else. Oh my god, let's bring in Spider-Man, but like, let's not do Andrew Garfield, let's do something new. Oh wait, now we brought him in, we should do a movie about him, but like, okay, we can't go back, like we want it to be after Civil War, so no origin story. So it's just a story about him, when it's like, you could have done this with any superhero. Some scenes in DC, which is different because all the other movies, it's like New York, and obviously this is New York, but then they go to DC. So Michael Keaton is in this movie, which if you didn't know, Michael Keaton once was Batman. So it's kind of funny that now he's playing a villain. And I think that's also why they wanted to have a love interest that was an MJ in this movie, is because they wanted the villain to be the love interest's dad, which is something like I feel like is such a cliche. Like, I can't really pinpoint like movies or TV shows that have this, but like I've seen it before. It's like you find out the villain is like the parent, or like something involved with someone you like, or like whatever. And so it's just like, it's kind of a little bit of a cliche. Something that I felt also in the other Spider-Man movies is like the person was just like kind of like after Spider-Man because they got in their way of doing something. And here, like, it kind of feels like they're just doing what they're doing and Spider-Man is going after them, where it's like yeah, you have Tony Stark and you have like other resources, like why are you going after him? And like obviously he thinks he can do it himself, but it just feels so different than the other Spider-Man movies. And I know I keep talking about it, but like that's the truth. And then at the end of the movie, the Aunt May sees him in the suit. I just feel like overall, like I didn't come into this thinking I was gonna critique it that much, but I just feel like I ended up critiquing it so much just because, I don't know, like it just like made me mad that it was so different. And obviously they want to do something different, and they had these two very Spider-Mans that were so close to each other, and already two origin stories, that I guess they want to do something different, but it just feels like it's not needed. It feels like, even though it's funny, it just feels like it just makes me mad. And like I don't even root for Peter because I feel like he's just so immature in some elements too. And it's just, I don't know, like I've seen this movie multiple times, but I just feel like analyzing it, I'm not a fan. And that's the thing about these movies, superhero movies and Marvel movies, they don't want you to analyze it. They want you to watch these movies and be inspired and feel like you can be a superhero. And they're probably mad at me for analyzing these movies. And when you do analyze it, you find these issues, you find problems with it, and you get rid of them making their big bucks, I guess. I'm someone who's like not really a fan of superhero movies just because I don't like the message about them. And I don't know, hopefully I don't get hate or like hunted down for this, but these movies are funded by the military because they want people to like want to be superheroes. So that's the trope behind it. But I think these are still movies and we're still analyzing it. And I think it's good to compare different Spider-Man movies. And those are my thoughts about Spider-Man Homecoming. And then the movie for next week, if you haven't guessed it, the last Spider-Man movie we're doing, and we're done with Spider-Man, is Spider-Man No Way Home from 2021. I don't even know how I'm saying the words. But it's called Spider-Man No Way Home, right? Yeah. So anyway, comment your thoughts below about all these Spider-Man stuff. If you want to hate on me, hate on me. And then watch Spider-Man No Way Home for next week. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and bye.